One of the most important documentaries of the film festival this week is Political Animals. It's a whole story about how 4 very strong women started to change the course of history. And I'm delighted today we're here with the co-director Tracey WARES and Senator Carole Migden. Welcome.
Thank you.
Is your first time here in P-Town?
I was here as a tourist as a kid before I moved to California. I was a New York girl, so I'm glad to be back.
How did this extraordinary story come to be filmed, Tracey?
Well, my co-director, Jonah Markowitz, met Carole and heard about her life and the wonderful stories and some of the work that she had done. And then he had also heard about some of the other women that were with her at the same time. And he's a narrative feature director. So he approached me. We've known each other since we were kids, since we were 13 years old. I'm a documentary filmmaker. And so that's how the story started.
Senator, why was it important for you to be involved in this?
Well, I wanted to chronicleize history and show people the steps it took to frankly get that astounding United States Supreme Court decision affirming gay marriage. And it had been a struggle that took a dozen years or more for women. I was one of them in the California State Legislature, went about enacting laws that elevated gay couples to the equivalency of having all the rights that married couples have. And that paved the way for the United States Supreme Court to affirm our families. I want people to know the history and also to inspire them to get active, and you can change the world.
You were 4 pioneering women. Why were there no openly gay colleagues at the time?
Well, I parallel it a lot, you see it in the film, to World War II, where men went to war and women went to the factories. Well, our boys were sick and many had died. And when I think about that as a woman in my 30s that experienced the loss of my friends in 4 months. So firstly, we rose up as a responsibility and a duty, and I think secondly, it's easier for women to broach the line first among straight white men because they could pretend we weren't, or they could flirt with us, or we were women, but there is more antipathy straight men feel towards gay men than they do towards women. So I think we were the right set of people to first broach the issue and move the legislation forward. Right now, there are 3 or 4 other gay men serving in the California State Legislature.
Was it because you women were particularly fierce?
Well, fearless was important and not
I said fierce, but it's a good word.
Yeah. You know, also to have stick-to-itiveness. I always felt as a legislator that I had a certain amount of time and a lot to get done. So we just kept at it. And over time, you wear people down, and they also become used to your issues. And we remember gays in the military was a big national discussion. There are lots of things that here in America that were of gay nature that have begun to be talked about in dinner tables all over.
So explain to us why you all chose to do the issues piecemeal each year.
Well, you can only get so much, and lawmaking is incremental. So one starts with the registry, then proceeds to hospital visitation. From there, the right to put one's partner on health insurance. But these were also keeping with issues that the public was comfortable about. No one thinks you should be denied your loved one in a hospital. No one thinks a worker shouldn't cover their partner. So we began in lockstep to add every year a set of rights. So after 8 years, we had it all, except for federal rights. And that has to do with immigration, custody, the ability to inherit Social Security, that's very important. So that's why we needed the United States Supreme Court and the federal government to affirm our marriages.
Tracey, we think of these as better days. Was there any obstacles in making this film?
Well, I think any independent documentary, there's always hurdles, raising funds to keep that train going. But No, I think that, I mean, the women were remarkable. They are remarkable in all that they've achieved. So I think probably the hardest part with this story was deciding which bills to focus on, because there was so much work that they had done. Really impressive pieces of legislation. And so we chose a few that we could really follow through to give the scope and sort of a sense of some of their other work as well that would be, you know, a symbol for their body of work.
Right, because we were credible as lawmakers with our colleagues, and all of us had to be extra special. So of course we cared about a lot of other things too. But I was appropriation chair, very powerful. All the bills come to me. Let me just say the names. Senator Sheila Kuehl was the first. Anybody that's a little bit of an old timer remembers her on Dobie Gillis as Zelda. Christine Kehoe was more moderate, coming from San Diego. Jackie Goldberg from Los Angeles had been part of the free speech movement in the 60s on college campuses. So very much so as lesbians, we had already been very socially and politically active in many movements.
Were you, I mean, seeing you on the screen, were you born to be a political leader, or is it something you fell into?
It really, I probably was one of the last people in life that fell into it, because young political leaders now take political science. I ran a nonprofit, worked in the Haight-Ashbury, detoxing heroin addicts, and I met Harvey Milk and sought his assistance with funding for different gay programs I was involved in. Moreover, as a 60s child, we were political, all of us. We were taking to the streets, protesting the war in Vietnam. It was imbued and embedded in the culture of students that lived in that era, and young adults as well.
With hindsight now, would you have changed anything what you did when you were in power?
I think we did it all. In a way, I feel very accomplished and satisfied and elevated by the fact that this film is beautifully made because of the talent of Tracey and Jonah, and it was a serendipitous meeting. A friend of a friend introduced us. As you've seen it, it is brilliant, it is alive. It is not like a dry documentary where you feel like you're taking your medicine. You know, I think it's learning. But the second important part is I want young people to see it. I want it in schools because it would encourage young women and men to know that they can take power and get things done if you're committed and have stick-to-itiveness. And the law is what makes things different, so it's very important to change the law.
Tracey, do you see your film as a part of a major movement to record our gay history now?
I think that's part of it, but also, as Carole is mentioning, I think it's really about motivating people to become involved right now as well. I think sometimes young people get really frustrated with the system, so they kind of throw their hands up and say, screw it. But really, to get things done, you have to be working on the streets, demonstrating, but then you have to move people into the corridors of power to actually be able to change things. And, you know, the state of California, we're very lucky, our citizens, for the work that Carole Migden, Sheila Kuehl, and Christine Kehoe and Jackie Goldberg did, because we think a lot about who's the president of the United States, but really when it comes to things that affect you on a day-to-day basis, it's your state senators that are making those laws and can really impact you. And I mean, right now, there's over 100 pieces of legislation of anti-LGBT bills in various states around the country. And there's been a big backlash with gay marriage, and I think that the fight still continues. It's not a piece of history, it is like a continuous living history, and people need to be inspired by those that came before them so that they can see a path forward.
I see more films in you.
Well, I think it's just a revelation of hate that's always been there. If I just might modify one of them, backlash. You can't be taught that gay people are the worst thing, and especially among men, and suddenly think you cast all aspersions off. We created rights, and they're rippling effects, and certainly in the South. But over time, we'll tackle them all. And the United States government is involved in their definition of discrimination, and the Justice Department's going to North Carolina. And different states are reconsidering whether or not they want to deprive gays of rights. We still need the right for employment and housing. There's certainly more work to do ahead. We feel that we've accomplished a good platform from which to build.
Unfair question, I'll ask it. What would you want your legacy to be, Senator?
I think it is what the film reveals. That film illustrates, frankly, the kernel, the first baby step towards establishing the right to marriage. And it inspired lawmakers throughout the country. And as you have seen, it took a lot of work and vision to stick with it during a time when there was a lot of hostility. So I think there are other things in life that one's accomplished, in addition to being a good citizen and a good human being. But as a lawmaker, I passed 100 bills that make a difference in people's lives every day. In foster care, in a Clean Water Act, safe cosmetics, some of the strongest bills in the nation. So I feel very good and heartened by what was accomplished.
We're grateful to that. I'm curious, are you still friends with the other three?
We are. We had a wonderful reunion, and the film was part of it. And we're in different parts of the state and doing different things, but we definitely have a very strong bond and camaraderie. And it was very much fun for us to watch the film together for the first time and say, oh, remember him? Oh, God, that guy, is he still around? Because it is real footage of legislative floor sessions. And whereas people think they're not interested in politics, it's riveting. What occurred. So it was fun for us.
On a lighter note, you didn't say, why was I wearing that jacket in 19...
Well, I wish I had a blow dryer during the time, and my hair wasn't always so frizzy, but nevertheless.
But seriously, Senator, what's next for you?
Yes.
What's next for you?
Well, what I'm doing more of these days is, firstly, I'm very much involved in Hillary Clinton's campaign. I traveled to states for her. I was in Nevada and Arizona. And I'm going to continue to dedicate myself to getting her elected in November. And secondly, on a continuum, I continue to train, and I'm a consultant to young women and men who want to get politically involved. I want to encourage that. I don't want people to be turned off by the process, but understand it's something that one can use as a tool to make life better for all.
I feel tired just listening to you. I'm not doing enough. Tracy, what's next for the film after this festival?
So we're here, and then we go straight to Frameline 40 in San Francisco, and we're premiering at the Castro there on June 19th.
Exciting.
Yes, and then we'll be traveling the circuit for some other festivals. Denver's coming up, Cinema Q is there. Yeah.
So we're going to put your website up.
Outfest in Los Angeles as well.
We're going to put your website up, and we keep an eye on what happens to it. But in the meantime, thank you for all your work, and thank you for a great movie, and enjoy the trip here.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks so much. It's wonderful to be here, and it's been a great reception.
Good.
Thank you.